We have a pretty packed full agenda, so I'm going to jump right into it. Kind of who is this training for, and why did we put this together, and what's the purpose of this training, and who is this for? This training is for ultimately professionals and B2B organizations, and really anybody looking to build relationships with people. So this could be a nonprofit trying to raise funding for their organization. This could be a real estate agent trying to find new clients to sell or buy homes. It could be a B2B organization that services other businesses. And the reason why I put all these organizations in its own category is because they're very relationship-driven industries. As you know, that's the reason why you're on the training today, is because you're in a relationship-driven industry, and marketing and sales is super challenging when it comes to relationship-based industries, and especially when it comes to technology. So, and merging the gap between how to connect with people online and actually build a relationship with them online is very, very much different than the picture I have up here of two gentlemen shaking hands, right? Like, we don't have a lot of that shaking hands over the internet. So how do we create that connection with people? How do we build a relationship with them at scale and over the internet? So any organization kind of in that sphere of building relationships. Also another, you may be here today because you're frustrated by not getting enough leads or reach every month in your marketing campaigns. And once again, relationship building at scale is super hard, right? You can only shake so many hands. You can only meet one-on-one with people so often. So a lot of times, and what I've experienced, I'll talk a little bit about my experience and how I got to developing virtual events and webinars, is because it's hard to do it at scale. It's hard to build lots of relationships quickly and easily at scale. And maybe another reason why you're here today is you don't have a ton of time or marketing dollars. Similar boat I was in about 5 years ago when I started in a B2B complex industries. We didn't have a huge budget for marketing, and we didn't have maybe a marketing director or a full-time marketing team. Another reason you may be here today is you want to get clients by helping them first. If you're a people-driven individual where you just love serving, right? You just love helping people, it's marketing and sales can feel really fake, can feel really not genuine, right? Because you're trying to get them to help you ultimately, and starting out on that front. Really cool. Love to talk to you guys today about webinars and other virtual events where it's about serving people. It's about helping them first, building a relationship with them, very similar to you going out and having coffee with somebody or go getting lunch with a potential client. They ask you questions, you engage with them. And that's ultimately what the goal is to help people. And that's how webinars and other events do that. Cool. What we'll be covering today is the struggle of relationship building at scale. We've talked about that. We'll also be covering how do webinars work and why do webinars work. We'll be talking about the simple framework for creating content. Creating content can be super challenging and overwhelming just in general. And so we're gonna go through a simple format and framework you can use to create content. We'll also be looking at what makes up a successful webinar or successful webinars or other virtual events. What's the key ingredients you need to make sure you have a powerful webinar, builds relationships, and gets you new clients? And then also some mistakes I've made. So I've been doing virtual events for a long time now, and webinars, and I'm gonna teach you some of the mistakes I've made. That way you can avoid them. And then last but not least, we're going to show you why are people not doing webinars and where are the opportunities for you and your organization. Awesome. A little bit about me, my story, my struggle. My journey with marketing and sales really started with cold calling. And I remember being so repulsed at the process of cold calling for a number of reasons. Number one, if you've ever done cold calling, 1 out of 10 people you get on the phone are probably going to be upset that you've interrupted their day and that you're on that they're on some list. And it felt abusive in some ways. It felt like I was taking advantage of people, and that if a certain percentage, I don't know if in marketing and in marketing theory, if a certain percentage of people are mad and upset with you because of the marketing tactic, maybe that's a red flag, and maybe that's not the most genuine, maybe that's not the most servant-focused approach to actually helping people and getting new clients. And so even though it works to a certain extent, anything works. I think in marketing, anything works if you do enough of it. But ultimately it felt, and ultimately I hated it, just doing it in general, right? I don't think I've never met one person that just loves cold calling or other types of cold outreach. But in a relationship driven industry or a complex relationship driven sales and marketing, cold calling is the automatic go-to because there's really not a whole lot of other areas. Networking events, cold email, all those other things I've tried as well and done over the years with varying success. And once again, it felt forced. It didn't feel genuine. Same thing with networking events. They do not feel genuine at all, ultimately. They feel like you're all there to make friends, but ultimately you're all just trying to get clients, right? So it doesn't seem genuine. It doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem like you're actually putting your best foot forward. Once again, there's right ways to do those things and there's wrong ways. From my personal experience, I found a lot of those typical B2B business development type marketing and sales just wasn't for me. So I went looking. So for the past 5+ years, I've been working in B2B relationship marketing sales. I've worked in the financial service industry and I've worked in technology industry where we are ultimately trying to build relationships with business owners and whatnot. And so I went on the search to try to find really what's the most scalable marketing out there, because most marketing is sales, not relationship building. So most marketing is, hey, you're trying to get somebody to buy something, right? Whereas, which is sales, not really marketing. And ultimately in our industries, B2B, professional service industries, you need something that's scalable and you need something that's builds relationships, not just gets sales. Because ultimately that's what your goal is, right? You want to have one-on-one relationships. People know you, people understand you, they get to know you, and you're able to start that relationship. So I eventually, after stumbling along and working with a lot of people in my industry, I found the success of webinars. So in the technology industry, I ultimately started running webinars and hosted like a monthly webinar for over a year or so and had tremendous success, generating thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars of recurring revenue for the company I worked for and building relationships. One of the things that was my most favorite experience doing webinars was I'd have somebody book a meeting with me after a webinar because, I'd be like, hey, if you want more help, book a meeting with us. They book a meeting and they'd be like, Taylor, remember when you said on the webinar that one tactic or that one strategy, or I remember you saying this on the webinar. And so it exponentially increased my relationship and my trust and my capital with that person. And it expedited the sales process because they already knew about our strategy. They already knew about our philosophy and how we operated and my personality and our organization's personality. Super cool. I'll talk a little bit more about my experience later on in the webinar, but ultimately, I was able to learn firsthand the power of doing webinars and the power of really long form content marketing, which we'll talk a little bit more about later as well. Awesome. So let's talk about, I've hinted at a couple different reasons, but let's talk about why do webinars work? So I got Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a marketing guru and business leader, who many of you know, I'm sure. I love his quote by him, and this is recently on a social media. The reason so many people struggle to sell is because they don't believe in what they're selling. And if you're in a relationship-driven industry, it's really hard sometimes to sell what you do because first you may be really focused on the client, right? You may be so focused on them that you kind of forget about your sales pitch. And that's a great focus. I love that servant focus. But then also it's really hard to get passionate about something you believe in. It's really hard to get the motivation around it. So what I say is, hey, let's stop focus on selling and focus on teaching, focus on educating, focus on helping people, and forget about the selling. Because actually, in my opinion, and we'll go through this a little bit, webinars and other virtual events that help you teach people, help you help people, it's actually the best sales pitch in the world because you build trust with them, you build a relationship with them, and then they're going to ask you to help them, right? So you don't even have to ask them to come out and help. They're going to ask you because you've already built a relationship with them. So a couple things here. Why do webinars work? Like I've already hinted at this, when you share what you love, it converts. So let's talk about that idea for a second here. When you share what you love, right? When you're really passionate about something, like I love cooking with my wife, and I love traveling, and I love skiing and cycling and coffee. And there's a lot of things I love. And when I talk about them, it's like, I could just talk about them forever. And people get excited when you're excited, right? So what's important about this idea is that, and this kind of goes to Gary Vee's quote, is when you're really passionate about something, when you're just sharing what you love, it converts people to bring them on your team, versus going the opposite, right? Trying to convert them first and then share what you love, right? Ultimately, getting people passionate and excited about what you're excited about is the best sales pitch in the world. And so what webinars and other virtual events do is you get the opportunity to share what you love. For example, right now, I am sharing with all of you the reason why I love webinars, right? I'm super passionate about it because I've seen how successful it's been in my business. I've seen how successful it's been in organizations I've worked in. And so I'm passionate about it, right? So I'm teaching you what I love. If it works, you guys will want to work with me more, or want to follow my work, or create successful webinars. So ultimately, it's the idea of, hey, focus on what you love, share what you love, share what you're passionate about. And then that is what converts, versus trying to sell, ultimately, because you're focused on the wrong things. You're focused too much on selling, not enough on your passion. It works because it's very similar to how you've gotten clients before. So think about this idea. If you've been in relationship-driven industries, if you've worked with clients before, you have clients right now, how did you get them, right? You probably got a referral from somebody, or you most likely got a referral or from some other marketing campaign. You got coffee with them, or had a video chat with them, or got lunch with them. And what did you do? You sat down with them for 45 minutes to an hour. You talked, you asked questions, they asked questions of you. You got to share with your client all the reasons why you love what you do, how you got into your industry. So webinars and other virtual events are actually a very similar format to how you get clients now, which is meeting with people, sharing what you love, educating them, teaching them, giving them some value, right? In a meeting, if a lot of times what sparks a client's engagement with you is they have a problem, right? And so they're like, hey, let's get together, or let's get on the phone, let's talk about my problem. And then you give them ideas, you give them value. A webinar format is exactly the same, or virtual format is exactly the same. But in reverse, you're presenting. You're like, okay, what are my clients dealing with? And then so you create a webinar around that, and then you educate them. Very similar to how you got clients currently. It's the most real and genuine form of marketing. This is like my favorite aspect of it. For somebody that's worked in marketing and sales for a while, and somebody that really enjoys finding things I'm passionate about and finding things that are genuine and real. It's the age-old phrase, it's better to give than receive, the age-old proverb. Well, in marketing, that proverb is so true. And in webinars and other virtual events, it really is the most genuine and real form of marketing, because you're giving before you ever even ask, before you ever even pitch them. And so unlike other marketing, that's kind of manipulation, or trying to get them through a funnel, or trying to position yourself as this or that, and trying to ultimately get them to take action. Not that those things can't work, or those things aren't important in a healthy, ethical way, but ultimately webinars have the ability to just be the most genuine and real form of marketing. Once again, folks, if you have questions, send them through the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them towards the end of the webinar as well. Awesome. Another fourth thing, why do webinars work, is a long form content is the most powerful form of content. If you look at any marketing leader, anything online, podcast, webinars, long YouTube videos, any sort of long content, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, 2 hours long, over the past couple of years, an exponential increase in audiobooks, right? Another form of content where people love listening, they love learning, and they want to go deep. They want more. Another little fun fact too, because of Netflix and other kind of binge watching environments where you can watch a bunch of episodes of something at one time, it's also humans, or we've created the desire to want more. And as humans, we always want more, right? So when it comes to marketing, long form content is the most powerful. And that's not me, that's Gary Vee, that's almost every other marketing leader out there, is that long form content, because of the ability to really help people, number one, build relationships, connect with people. And then the more time you spend with somebody, if you're in any type of client relationships, the more time you spend with somebody, the more likelihood that they're going to buy, that they're going to engage with you, that they're going to work with you. So super cool, super exciting. A couple results. One other thing in regards to why do webinars work is you can make it and reuse it a million times. Just like the whole content marketing game, for lack of a better expression, is it's hard to create content. The cool thing about webinars is this webinar I'm doing right now is I'm actually going to reuse it. I'm going to reuse it on our website. I'm going to be able to reuse it to other people, share it with other people, and I'm going to reuse it millions of times. And not that I won't maybe do more webinars down the road for other topics and other engagements, kind of like what I hinted at earlier. But ultimately, this particular event, I can reuse it tons of times, and on-demand webinars have become more popular over the past couple of years. And I can cut this up too. I can take out just certain sections of it and use it for marketing. But really cool, the ability to reuse it as many times as you'd like. And then last, it automates your sales process. So this is another thing I've hinted at as well, is it gives you the ability to automate your sales process. So let's say, excuse me, you have a client, you engage a client, either referral, and you meet with them and they get on your email list. And maybe they don't buy from you right now, but they're on your email list. Well, you can invite them to a webinar, and that can kind of put them in the funnel again. Any part of your funnel, for lack of a better expression, that's overused sales and marketing term, a virtual event or some sort of long form content is super important to have in your funnel. So this helps automate it. And then just as results, I've seen webinars decrease my sales cycle by half because of the ability that it just exponentially, it's like I've already met with the client. By the time after my webinar, by the time we have a phone call or we engage one-on-one, I've already had a meeting with them essentially. So I'm able to expedite the sales process. And then I had a meeting that was really information heavy, right? Like this webinar, tons of information. And so it gave me the ability to not only automate my sales process, but ultimately expedite my sales process, because they already know a ton about me. They already know a ton about my organization. They already know a ton about what we do, how we solve problems. We've already built a relationship with them and already started that process. So I've seen in industries where I've usually had a 6 to 12 month sales cycle reduced to 3 to 6 months due to webinars and the ability for just to expedite that relationship. A couple outcomes. This is a HubSpot. If any of you know HubSpot, great CRM marketing tools, especially for B2B or other professional service organizations. HubSpot did a study this year. And first part was, do you use webinars as a marketing tool? So they did a survey of all their clients, and they worked with this third-party provider to do the survey. And last year, 46% of HubSpot clients were doing video marketing and or webinars. This year, they project it's going to jump up to 62%. And the reason being, if you read this quote over here from HubSpot, 91% of webinar marketers say that they have been successful, make it the most effective marketing channel of all listed. So if you go to HubSpot, you can read this whole article on video communication. The whole article is on video communication. You probably heard this, right? Video is king, and you got to do lots of video, and that's super important. But what this is saying is that webinars are actually the most effective form of video marketing. So if you can do webinars, not only are they most effective, but 91% of webinar marketers found them effective and found them super helpful. And then, as you can see, other people are getting into it, and other people, but there's still a huge market. Almost not even half last year of marketers were using webinars. So still a huge opportunity for you to use webinars in your organization, and because there's still not a whole lot of competition out there. Awesome. So quick little information here. If you already know you need more help, we're actually doing a live workshop, an additional workshop that you can attend. In this workshop, we're going to be doing a bunch of things. We'll be taking a deep dive into the 8 steps for launching a successful webinar. We'll teach you how to create a presentation that converts. We'll teach you how to get vendors and partners to present and pay for everything. One of my favorite things right there, number 3, is getting vendors and partners to do all the presenting on your webinar. And then what they call MDF, marketing development funds is what it stands for. It's an industry term, that your vendors or your partners probably have funds available in their budget that they will give you to pay for all the marketing for your webinar. Your vendors or partners are probably looking at webinars as well. And what I've done in the past is partnered with other of our vendors and partners to pay for everything and to do all the presenting. So I didn't have to do anything. I just had to organize it, get the Zoom webinar feature set up, get the landing page set up, invited people to it, and then they paid for everything. Super cool. Another thing, number 4, is how to partner with associations and groups. So continued education, CPE credits. You can actually, it's quite easy if you reach out to an association in your industry or an association that's in your target demographic. For example, if you're in real estate, you may go reach out to neighborhood associations or whatnot and say, hey, I'd love to come do a presentation to your neighborhood association on buying and selling a house, right? Or an association, let's say you're a financial advisor and you want to work with CPAs. Well, you may go to a CPA association, partner with them, say, hey, I'll do a presentation for you, give a CPE credit, which is continued education credit, which all CPAs need to have. And you do a presentation to their audience, and then ultimately you have free marketing, right? You didn't have to go out and get people to sign up. They're going to bring people to your event. And then in this workshop, we'll be doing a bonus session, which is how to sell remotely. So you do a webinar, you get people to come, and then people start booking meetings with you after the webinar. How do you convert them? How do you over video what we're doing now? And then how do you convert them? How do you get them to become a client? How do you sell remotely? Because that's super important, because you can get people engaged, you can get them to book a meeting with you, but then how do you take them over the finish line and continue that relationship building that you did in the webinar? So if you're interested, go to createsuccessfulwebinars.com. You can enroll in the workshop. It's an additional up to it's 2 hours for the first workshop, and then another hour for the bonus session. Feel free to go online and register for that if you want more training. Awesome. We're going to jump into the simple framework for content creation. So in this framework, this is something that I developed over years of doing content marketing and other forms of marketing. So what I call is the content sandwich, or GPG. And the acronym is ultimately give, pitch, give. And it's a very simple concept, but ultimately you start with number 1 is you give knowledge to solve a problem. So right now we're doing a webinar, we're doing this event, this training to teach you how to generate great clients from webinars, right? So I'm giving you ideas, I'm giving you knowledge, I'm giving you value. And then the next step is I'm going to pitch my service. So I'm going to pitch my service as pitch your service as unique perspective. So number 1 is you give knowledge, right? We gave knowledge to solve the problem. Number 2 is you're going to then give your offer your service to give your unique perspective. So think about this for a second. Giving knowledge is one thing, right? Like there's lots of knowledge in the world. You can go on YouTube and learn a lot about a lot of things. But giving perspective to your specific situation, how do you bridge the gap between your knowledge and your perspective is super important, because applying knowledge is super challenging. So that's where you come in. That's where your service or product comes in. You can give people tons of knowledge, tons of ideas, but actually executing it in their unique circumstance is challenging. So that's where you come in. So you pitch your service. And I love Donald Miller. He's another marketing business guru. And he says, you're the guide to their journey. No one cares about you. It's a little harsh. People do care about you, but your potential client or prospect probably doesn't care about necessarily seeing your business thrive. They want to see their business or their organization thrive, or whatever they're trying to do thrive. So focus on being their guide. Focus on being not their hero. They're the hero of their story. You want to be their guide. You want to walk them through how to ultimately achieve their mission and be the guide. And then number 2, you are an expert, and your service or your product will give them the unique perspective. Help them implement the knowledge you just gave them. So your pitch is really all around, hey, I just gave you a bunch of knowledge. but how do you implement it? And then the third step is give more. So this is something that you probably have heard number 1 and number 2 before from marketing gurus, but number 3 is super important. So just a second ago, I pitched you on our workshop that you can go to our website and sign up for. But if I just left it there and left the training, you might be like, wow, that's it. Like, what if I want to learn more about your organization? Maybe I haven't spent enough time with you to develop that relationship. So I need to give more, right? And keep on giving. And then ultimately it keeps that relationship going. It keeps that relationship building going. So I'm giving more, right? The training is still continuing on, and I'm going to give you more knowledge and more ideas for how to execute successful webinars. So number 1, give. Number 2, pitch your service as the unique perspective. And number 3, continue giving. So you're going to do this in your webinars, but in your virtual events, but you're actually going to do this all the time. You should be doing this throughout all of your sales process. You give information, you pitch your service, and you follow up with giving more. So if you do have, an email sequence set up, or if you do have some way you engage your clients or prospects, is you should be focusing on giving and then pitching and giving and repeat, rinse and repeat, keep going through that process. And that's how I found tremendous success. Awesome. We're going to jump into what makes up a successful webinar. So what are the key ingredients? Key ingredients is spending time actually solving a problem your client has. So a lot of webinars are so focused on selling. They're so focused on getting their pitch in and selling that they forget about actually solving a problem. So what you should be focused on is solving a problem. So your title, right? So my title of this event is Generate Great Clients from Webinars, or How to Generate Great Clients from Webinars. That's a specific problem your organization is dealing with, and that's why you're on this training. So you should be focused on solving a specific problem, not selling your product, not selling your course, helping them solve that problem and giving them as much knowledge as to solve that problem. Versus focus on your pitch. If you've been in a webinar where it's like, oh my gosh, it's all about them, they're talking about their life and their problems and how they got here and all the money they made, no one cares about that. It helps a little bit with building credibility, but ultimately they're not going to watch it. They're not going to be engaged. They're going to stop listening because there's so much content out there. There's so much knowledge out there. And people don't have time. They're being inundated with so much marketing material. So unless you're actually helping people, they're going to tune out and move on. Market the content, not your service. So it kind of goes into this last piece is focus on marketing the content, not your services. So when you think about a title for your webinar, when you think about the bulk of your presentation, and when you go to market it, right, when you start promoting it to people, focus on the content, not the services, right? Focus on your marketing, the problems, you're marketing the outcomes of the content, right? So you're going to learn, like at the beginning of this webinar training you're going to learn these things. Who is this for, right? Talking about who is this content for and what are you going to learn? Awesome. Next one is proper engagement, follow-up, and tools. So this is super important. Things I've learned through trial and errors of, hey, how do you do proper engagement? How do you make sure you follow up with people so that they join the webinar? Whether it's email sequences, reminders, you all got multiple reminders to join this training today, which I strategically did to ensure that you attended and you followed up, because we're all getting, oh my gosh, how many scheduled meetings do we have? How many emails are we getting? Especially in the past 12 months has been exponentially increased. So proper engagement, and then follow up afterwards. So how are you following up with your prospects and webinar attendees? And then what tools are you doing to manage everything? You don't have to be tech savvy to do all this, especially in our workshop training. We give you all the tools. We walk you through everything you need to know to launch everything. Partnering with vendors and partners. I've already kind of mentioned this, right? You can partner with vendors and other partners where they can do a lot of the work for you. And there's a lot of organizations out there that are really looking to partner with somebody. And then also a panel. You can do things like, not only could you get your partner or vendor to come do the presentation, fund all the marketing, you can also get a panel. So one thing I've done is I've reached out to experts on LinkedIn in the field I'm working in and said, hey, I'm doing a panel. Would you be willing to come speak at my panel? And we were able to get 4 or 5 experts in the industry to come speak at our event. I had to do 0 presenting. I had to do 0 creating a presentation. I just got other people to come present, and I asked them questions. I created 5 to 6 questions that we just went around the panel and asked people, and super cool. Number 2 part about that is when you get people to come join your panel is they're going to promote it for you. So they want people to come watch them. They want their boss to see that they're on a webinar. They want their customers to see that they're engaging. So they're going to reach out to all of their audiences and invite people to your webinar. 2 things happen. Number 1, free publicity, right? Free marketing, super awesome. Number 2, you get people's emails. You get people opt into your marketing because they're all signing up on your landing page. And now you just had kind of a ripple effect, a snowball effect of marketing. Super cool, a way to make webinars successful. Another thing too here is maybe you have to do 1 or 2 webinars, or maybe 3 or 4 to actually see what works and to dial it in for a couple of reasons. First, you may not know the topic, right? You may not know exactly what to present, what's going to be the most exciting for people. So having more than 1 event is super important. And I recommend doing, 2 or 3, or doing it one a month for 6 months, or 1 a month for 12 months, depending on your bandwidth. Just start doing it. Start doing them regularly. You're going to learn a ton. It's going to open doors up to new opportunities with clients. It's going to get you new clients in general. But then ultimately, you're going to be able to test topics and test ideas, test problems, right? Going back to number 1, how do you spend time actually solving people's problems? Well, sometimes you don't know exactly what the most popular problem is until you start doing them, especially if you're new to an industry, right? If you're a veteran in an industry where you've worked there for 5 to 10 or 15 years, you're like, your client's problems so well that it may be easier for you to pick a topic and to pick a presentation to go off of. And then it should be a part of an overall marketing strategy. So whether it's email marketing or phone calling, engaging with your prospects or clients, whether it's any other advertising, ads, things like that, LinkedIn, there's lots of great other marketing strategies out there. Webinars are a great piece to that. It's a great way to ultimately bolster all of your marketing efforts, because it's a really powerful area to add to the funnel. Cool. Let's talk about some mistakes I've made over the past couple of years doing virtual events. Number 1, you may have to try more than 1 topic. It wasn't until my 3rd webinar, where my first webinar, I probably had like 20 or 30 people show up, which was actually pretty good. 20 or 30 business leaders to show up for your webinar is awesome. It wasn't until my 3rd virtual event where I had almost 200 people register and over 120 people show up. And it was like awesome. We probably got 2 or 3 clients out of the webinar. The content was super great. It was just an amazing event. But it took us a couple of times to figure out, hey, what topic is super important, and ultimately how to dial that in. Number 2, I didn't have the proper ratio of pitch to content. So actually, my first webinars I did all content. I didn't talk about us at all. I just gave, which is good. That's super important. But if no one knows about what's your unique perspective, right? So back to the pitch, back to the framework, the content framework. You want to give, pitch, give. Well, if you just give, no one knows about your unique perspective, right? So you got to talk about your unique perspective. You got to talk about your unique process for how you can solve and ultimately implement the knowledge. So our conversions on webinars didn't really get super great until I was able to get that ratio of content to pitch down. Not aligning your content to the pitch. So you got to be careful with your topic, right? You don't want to pick a topic that's so outside of what you do that it has nothing to do with your pitch. It has nothing to do with how you serve people, how you execute the knowledge. So you want to make sure there's alignment in what you're doing, how are you pitching, and ultimately is your content, are they going to see, hey, okay, they gave me this knowledge, I see that their service helps me execute that knowledge, gives me that unique perspective for how to execute that knowledge. Another problem I had was sometimes you want to record things, right? And it's really tempting to record events and then just put them out there versus doing something live. Live, I remember my first webinar, it was, I was sweating bullets, and I still get a little bit, I woke up this morning, I woke up early this morning because I knew I had this event today. My heart rate starts going as I think about, okay, I got to present, I got to be, it's definitely an intense experience doing a webinar in some regard, especially when you first start doing them. But what's really cool is there's nothing that's superior to live for a couple of reasons. First, your presentation will be so much more natural, so much more you if it's live. When you're actually, like right now, I know I'm talking to people all around the country, all around the world around these ideas, right? So it puts me in a headspace, just like I would be if I was in a room with people presenting, or if I was having coffee with a potential client, or on video chat with a potential client. It puts you on the stage. And in the workshop, in our training, we'll teach you how to get over that, right? It can be, I do like warm-ups before my webinars. I do a little bit of yoga, I do some breathing exercises. I have all sorts of different things I do to make sure I'm ready. I actually stand up while I'm doing a presentation. That way I can project and I'm not too lackadaisical. And then also it converts. It's just a better experience for people. That being said, once you have the recording, right? Once you have a live recording, you can then use it tons of times, right? And you still have the feel of it being live versus it being a recording that was obviously staged and doesn't have that heightened intensity that live events when you're on stage or when you're in front of a client. Another thing is, don't do faked live events. I didn't really get into this that much because it just kind of disgusts me. If you'll notice out there's a lot of people doing fake live events where they've done a live event, they've recorded it, and then they put it through. There's a lot of webinar platforms, Easy Webinar. There's a lot of platforms out there that allow you to do this, which just, I mean, like it's lying to people ultimately, because you're telling them it's live, you're telling them it's starting in 4 hours, but it's not live, right? You recorded it already, and then you're just replaying it or rerunning it. And I think people see through it. I think people that are savvy, people that are skeptical, will see through it. You might take advantage of some people that may not kind of connect the dots. Are like, hey, is this actually live? Or is this a recording? But it ultimately it's lying to people, and I definitely don't like it, and I can see right through it when I go to a webinar. And then secondly, I see why people do it. They do it because you want to have that sense of urgency, right? Like, it's live, we're going live in 4 hours. You need to be there. It gets people to take action to attend your event. But ultimately, it's very short-sighted, because if you're going to alienate a certain population, the percentage of the population, and then number two, it's just not genuine. And if you actually want to help people, you want every aspect of your marketing and sales process to be genuine, real, and authentic versus trying to manipulate them and lie to them. Awesome. So why are people not doing webinars? There's a long list of reasons why people are not doing webinars, and things I've heard from people of why they're not doing webinars. And this is everything from they didn't know how effective they are, right? Maybe you're on this training right now and you didn't know how effective webinars are. And then number two, they hosted one in the past and no one showed up. Or they don't like the schemes and lies of other webinars. They don't have tech experience. They don't want to do webinars over and over again. They don't know how to create a presentation. They don't like public speaking. They don't have the money to market a webinar. They don't have an email list to send it to. So all these are legitimate problems for webinars. And in our workshop, we're going to teach you how to overcome all of these problems. These problems are things I've dealt with, right? Like I mentioned, public speaking was a challenge. I had to learn how to get myself ready and learn myself how to have a process. I had to learn how to create a presentation. I had to learn what tech do I need to have in place. And so what's really cool is none of this stuff is rocket science. Within a couple hours, I can give you the knowledge to figure out all of these areas. That being said, there is crucial things you need to do for all of these areas, right? These are all actual problems that if you miss one of these things, your presentation won't be successful. So this is definitely something, these are problems and things that people ultimately stop them from engaging in webinars. And ultimately, this is our training, our additional training will help you get through all these problems and ultimately present a successful webinar. Awesome. Like I mentioned before, if you want to engage in our workshop, you can go to createsuccessfulwebinars.com to enroll. And we'll take you through all these processes to help you get over all those problems we mentioned before. We are coming up on the top of the hour here, getting close to it. So I want to leave some time for questions, Q&A. So please send in your questions. We'll definitely answer those if you have any. And then ultimately, our workshop, happy to answer questions around the workshop, happy to answer questions around just how I've done webinars, how they've been successful. So yeah, please send your questions on in. It looks like a lot of people are actually leaving the webinar. Obviously had to get on to other things. So if we don't have any questions coming in, once again, if you need more help, go to createsuccessfulwebinars.com. Happy to help you out or just answer questions. If not, thank you for joining our training today, and best of luck creating a successful webinar. Take care.